And good evening, everyone, and thank you for your presentations. I think you all have identified a number of issues, and it's the same few issues here. I suppose to deal with a few of them, the first one there is around staffing and the pay parity issue or pay disparity that still exists, especially for Section 39. I know, Joe, you said your organisation is a Section 39. I'm not sure about Ability West. Is it Section 39 as well? I know the WRC agreement from last October hasn't been honoured in its fullness, and I was told when I was following up on this issue, because it's really affecting day services in my constituency, that there was to be more talks this month. So I'm just wondering, is there an update on those? Has any progress been made on those? And I know that the staffing issues, retention and recruitment, don't just apply to Section 39. There are issues within the Section 38 organisation, the HSE-run organisation as well. So I'm just wondering, have you, you're saying people are moving away from careers in social care, and I'm just wondering why that is, or what can be done to address that? Is it just a lack of people qualifying in those areas? Is it something that needs to be addressed in third level, or are there other issues that are affecting it? You all, I think, as well have agreed or have talked about the assessing changing needs of your service users, and that some of this is due to age, or it could be just other changing circumstances as well. So I'm just wondering what will address that. Is it just more funding? Is it a change in the model or a change in approach to doing that? And then in relation to, I suppose, just school leavers, like for some time we might have 18-year-olds leaving school and then they're going straight into a service and they're not leaving that until, at any time at all. And I do welcome the fact that there's new initiatives out there and many more young people are actually going on to higher and further education, and I hope to see an expansion of that. And it's unfortunate there doesn't seem to be a career guidance in special schools, and I think that's an awful miss. I think we need to be looking at that as well. And engaging with parents in Cavan in particular, and even Cavan and Monaghan, especially those that attend whose children attend the special school there, they're finding that the day service or their training units and so on they're at capacity, but even if they weren't, they're not suitable to some of the children who have more complex needs. So I think there is a level of unmet need there within the service provision, and it's just we need to look at all that. We need to look at more, I suppose, young people going into higher and further education, some into the current services, but maybe more that need something a little bit different as well. So I'm just wondering, have you any thoughts on that?
Deputy Tully, thank you for your questions. On staffing and pay parity and the update from the WRC, I suppose the agreement that was made was for an 8% uplift, which was very welcome and certainly something that was achieved for workers in Section 39 organisations. However, since that has been agreed, there has been a 10.5% agreement for the public sector and Section 38 workers. And so unfortunately that gap is widening again. And if you were in a Section 39 organisation seeking to recruit people to work in your service on behalf of the citizens who have the same right as all of the citizens who are supported by Section 38 or HC services, it's very hard to convince a potential staff member that you're offering the same package when there's already a 10.5% uplift on the table for staff working in Section 38. So the Section 30, the WRC agreement for the 8% is being concluded in terms of the payment and all of the processes at the moment. And the new talks, which began this month, are to look at how are we going to close that gap, because if we don't close the gap and get to a situation where we're in pay parity and where every time there's an uplift in the pay for Section 38 and HC workers, the citizens who access services that happen to be funded by a Section 39 agreement need to be assured that they too will be treated with parity, just as the citizens who access those supports have equal rights. So I think that's the aim of the talks, is to, by the end of the successor of this agreement, to get to pay parity, and I'm hoping that's what's going to be achieved. And we welcome the support of all members of the House in really focusing on that for the rights of people supported by any kind of Section 38, 39 or HC services. In terms of the qualifying piece, I might leave the the recruitment questions for some of my colleagues, and I might just briefly speak to your question about assessing changing need and what would address that. And again, my colleagues will have lots to say as well. But I suppose changing need, just to give a couple of really important statistics. I suppose my understanding is that the gene on which Alzheimer's sits, that there are 3 copies of that gene for a person with Down syndrome, just to take an example. And that means that many more people with Down syndrome develop Alzheimer's in earlier age groups. So many of the people we support who have Down syndrome would have Alzheimer's in their 40s. But in general terms, the IDS Tilda project has identified a vast range of matters to do with intellectual disability and ageing, and it's a really valuable study. But what it does show is that there is premature ageing for people with intellectual disabilities, and that means that their needs change too. So if you did have, for instance, a sleeping house where the staff are sleeping overnight, that can very quickly change to the need for a waking night staff. And similarly in day services, where somebody might have needed support within a group of people, their needs may become one-to-one support. Currently, there's no budget line in the funding that is provided to our services for changing need. And so people make business cases, or they try and move funding around when somebody's needs change. So what would help is that there was a structured and a model of assessing the needs as people's needs change, and that would lead to a clear pathway to funding their different needs that have now occurred as a result of that changing associated with their ageing. I think that there is a movement to provide career guidance in special schools, and that's something that the National Federation has been very, very strongly advocating for a number of years. And so we welcome the news that there is due to be some progress in that area, because as we mentioned in our opening statement, we need to be extremely ambitious and have a vision for the young people that we support in our schools, because they have really exciting lives ahead of them and goals that they can achieve if they are listened to and understood, and their goals are helped with their families, and to have a broad image of what can happen in life that includes employment, that includes education, that includes full integration in community life, and really guidance counselling in special schools is a really important part of that. So with that, I might invite some of my colleagues to join the discussion in relation in particular to the recruitment and retention, and also the day service capacity in relation to people with additional and greater needs.
I think that was addressed at this committee back in March. It was mentioned, it was acknowledged by the HSE as an issue. But I would say that the issue of recruitment and retention for us anyway has been the biggest issue on delivering quality-based service over the last 2 years. To ensure there is trained, consistent staff across service providing new direction support, we require equity of pay, and we'll be a lot of repeating ourselves here, but equity of terms and conditions across the sector, including maternity leave, premium payments. These are so important because people are choosing with their feet. Our workforce is young, predominantly female. If they wish to apply for a mortgage or a maternity leave, which employer are they going to choose? Are they going to choose the person who has full maternity leave funded or not? Are they going to go to the employer who is paying 2024 pay scales or 2021 pay scales? They're going to go for the one with the higher pay scales. In one 15-month period in the last 24 months, we recruited 87 people. Now, if you think about that, the workload to recruit 87 people, the amount of interviews, the amount of added work, when we should be focused on delivering services, we're focusing on actually recruiting. I spoke to one service in the last year as well, and they told me that they recruited an entire frontline staff in a 12-month period. So there's a full 100% turnover. I read a recent extract from a recruitment website that regarding our service, and I just read 2 bits. They're very short. Great place to work, but poor pay. Almost 0 increments. Pay not up to standard by any means. This type of environment is out there, and so people like in Section 39H are going to struggle hugely to recruit in that kind of environment. And what we do is we recruit, and the most qualified, the most experienced staff tend to go for all people go for all jobs, but they're going for the higher paid jobs, and they're getting those jobs. And Section 39 often get newly qualified people, and after a year or two they stay with us, they move on and they get the better paid jobs. So it's a huge issue for us. With regard to the other issues that you mentioned, I would agree with Alison. I would welcome the occupational guidance people in the special schools. With regard to changing need, Alison has outlined the fact that it is there and it's a real issue for us. We have people that we started in 1990. A lot of people were 20, 21, 22 at that stage. Now it's 35 years later. And those people, many of those people have added conditions, and they would have come into us on maybe a capitation payment of maybe 5,000 or 7,000. And it's so far away from their support needs now. And yet, as Alison said, there's no funding, but not only is there no funding, there's no mechanism to measure that support need, because the profiling tool can only be used for school leavers. So there's no agreed mechanism. And it's been, I think in 2011, 2015, the NDA studied four assessment tools. They wrote a report. They informed the department at the time. It was going to be announced that there would be a resource allocation tool, a national resource allocation tool agreed. We're still waiting.
We have the same issue in relation to recruitment and retention. We have to change our approach and our attitude in relation to recruitment. We are now spending significant time in relation to recruitment. We have to invest a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of resources on that onboarding piece. And sometimes we find we've, done significant work in relation to onboarding, and then the person will leave after that years because they will now have the experience and move to a different organisation where the pay is different. So that's a big, big concern for us at Ability West. At one stage we had something like 70 vacancies. And again, we had to put immense work into recruiting to provide our services at a local level.